Please welcome to the stage, Mod Jack and Mod Raven.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Lore Talk. I'm Mod Jack, this is Mod Raven.
Hello.
We're pretty excited. We're pretty excited to be up here on the main stage because it gives us a break from the lore hole they normally keep us in. So just to give you a quick overview of what's in the talk, first we're going to be telling you a little bit more about the 2 quests coming in 2018. That's right, 2 more quests. Good, good. As well as a great piece of story content from early next year. Next, we're going to be giving you an overview of the next big storyline and who it's going to be about. We're not announcing any specific content, and we're going to be explaining why. Then we're going to give you some exclusive new lore we've written for RuneFest, presented in a way that only makes sense up here on the big stage. Finally, we're going to be doing a short Q&A with questions we've pre-selected from the internet. Just a warning, there will be spoilers. We're talking about where the story is going after Endgame, so we're going to have to spoil Endgame to do that. We may also spoil other older content, but we won't spoil Game of Thrones. The updates we're going to be talking about will be covered in more detail in the full RuneScape Winter Reveals talk at 5, but since this is the quest talk, we stole all the quests so we can give you a sneak peek about them now.
Okay. So, we'll start with the first quest coming out, hence quest, which is The Needle Skips. The Needle Skips is the 400 quest point quest. That's right, 400, which means we're going to do something a little different, as is traditional. So, to give you some context, this quest was originally written by Mod Osborne, and the initial tech was created by Mod Krista and later modified by Mod Helen. It's a novice quest, so everyone can do it. It's open to everyone who's a member. So, The Needle Skips. The Needle Skips is a unique discovery system inspired by games like Her Story and Day of the Tentacle, with the idea of multiple different points of view. To give you an idea of how this works, what you would do is, rather than in most quests you would go from A to B to C to D, possibly back to B again, depending how mean we're feeling, with Needle Skips, you're presented with this. And you're presented with a piece of the needle. The needle is one of the other Elder artifacts. You can see it on the picture just on the left. It's that kind of strange thing with a little hole in it. The needle, its function is a bit special. What it does is it allows the user to roll back time just a little, not a tremendous amount, but enough to fix some problems. So the Elder Gods would use it to amend when they've messed up a bit. They'd turn a planet into blancmange and go, oops, we shouldn't have done that. So, with this in mind, what you would do with this needle is you would click the needle, and you would get a special little interface like this, which is, a word can change the world. And very simply, you would input a keyword into that little search box at the top, and this would unlock part of the story. So, what we've seen so far from the picture, we've seen this person lying on the floor. We would type in Megan. And in doing so, we would unlock this chapter here. We had hoped to play a sound, but something went horribly wrong when we tried it, so I do apologize. Each chapter gives you a bit of the puzzle, a bit of the information about what's gone on, tells you just a bit, enough to find more keywords, enough to continue searching for more keywords, digging deeper into the story. So you would slowly see the story unlock, slowly see it unravel, and you would discover the events that would transpire. What we've done is we've broken it down into 3 sort of specific acts involving these things, and each one is looking at it from a different point of view. So you see the story evolve, change, and you see it from how different points of view, different standpoints, so you can try and piece together the full idea of what happened. Doing this makes the quest uniquely immersive, because you are the ones going through, you are the ones pulling out the pieces, you are the ones piecing the whole story together. Rather than being just a passive observer, you are piecing it together, you are witnessing it as it goes along. And another thing that makes this really quite immersive is this quest is fully voiced. That's right. Yes, you may well cheer. And I recommend playing it with the audio on. Not only is the voice acting amazing, the audio team have done a fantastic job. of the general sound and ambience. So, what's the story, I hear some of you ask as I try and flip over my cards. So, the story isn't about gods and epic battles. It's about these three people, who are Primrose, Gale, and Megan. It is entirely focused on these three people. We only see things from their points of view, which means we're not telling, stories of gods tricking people into terrible things or great battles or this kind of thing. We're telling a deeply personal story. We're telling a heartbreaking story of a mother's love for her daughter and the lengths that she'll go to. Because this quest is so immersive, because it's all about piecing the story together, I'm not going to go through and give you the full picture. I want to give you just enough now to get an idea of the sense of the characters and a sense of what you're doing, but it's much more fun if you go through and learn it. So what I have done instead is I've got some quotes from mods, or I did, but I put it somewhere clever, who have played the story so far. So I'll start with a quote from Mod Ramen. Mod Ramen played this and he went, "I never thought a quest would knock While Gothic Sleeps off the top of my quest list, but this has." Mod Days said, "This has me tearing up." Mod James H said, "This is beautiful." And Mod Rowley said, "I suppose law players might like it." Anyway.
So on to our second new quest this year, which is actually going to be the Christmas update. Mod Days, Mod Ramen, and Mod Erator, that's right, Erator, just finished work on our amazing Halloween event. When they moved on to Christmas, they decided that what we really needed this year was another permanent quest. So that's what we're bringing you. You can find out more about the Halloween event and what else is happening in Christmas at the Reveals talk, but what you want to hear about is the quest, I assume. It's possible you're not aware, but this Christmas will be the 10th anniversary of Myths of the Whitelands. So to celebrate, we're heading back to the Land of Snow for our new quest, Violet is Blue. Now, because it's a permanent quest, it's possible some players won't play it at Christmas. I know you guys all will, but some players might not. That means the quest isn't strictly Christmas-themed, but it will be seasonal. So that means yes to ice and snow and celebration, love and family, but no to Santa, reindeer, the Queen of Snow, and her snow imps. So what else is there to explore in the Land of Snow? The first thing that springs to mind is sliding ice puzzles. Since it's only been 10 years, you're probably not ready for another whole quest of them. But I'm sure we can sneak one in somewhere. So what else would be suitable? Well, there is one type of creature that needs snow introduction. Not doing a whole quest about them would be abominable. There's not many in the game, but they have left a big footprint. Have you guessed what I'm talking about, Yeti? The Yetis we've met before have been humans cursed by the Noels. But what about the ones we've never seen before, living in peaceful seclusion in the Land of Snow? Let me introduce you to Mr. Yeti and Mrs. Yeti, and their adopted daughter, Violet. They live near the major settlement of Yeti Town, where Mrs. Yeti works as a spaghetti chef. Violet is human, and now that she's 6, she wants to make the trip to Yeti Town and visit the rest of her people. Unfortunately, Violet doesn't realize she's not a Yeti, and Mr. and Mrs. Yeti are worried about how all the others are going to react to her disgusting, hairless face. This is where you come in. Your job is to make sure Violet has a brilliant day. You need to get her to Yeti Town and make sure every experience she has along the way is a magical one. Like the Needle Skips, it's going to be a close and personal story, but this one's going to be uplifting and positive and full of seasonal cheer. If you're paying close attention, you might know a little something about the origins of the Land of Snow. So I'll be trying to sneak some Renmark lore in when the team aren't looking.
Okay, so those are the 2 upcoming quests that will be coming out by the end of this year. So I also want to talk about a big piece of story content that will be coming early next year. And this is, of course, Elite Dungeons: The Shadow Wreath. Yes! Cheer! So rather than take you through the full detailed story, because again, we'd quite like you to experience it, I'm going to take you through a what we know now, so everyone's on roughly the same page. So we'll start with, what is the Shadow Wreath, otherwise known as Ulthan Kriath? Well, We know it was created a long time ago by the Dragonkin. We know this from Pieces of Hate. We know that they attempted some sort of summoning ritual. You can see it here in this lovely picture. They attempted to summon for something that could potentially, they believed, help them in their struggle against Jazz's curse. We know that this did not go well. We know that something changed the Dragonkin, caused them to turn on one another. Dragonkin fought Dragonkin differently to how they currently fight now because they were nasty and creepy and sharp-pointed teeth. And we know the Dragonkin were forced to sink the structure. They sunk it. Yeah. They sunk the Ulfin down below, which is why it's now become known as the Shadow Reap. So, if I stop moving all my cards at once, it would make my life easier. Next up is the Temple of Aminishi, which is the next part of the storyline. The Temple of Aminishi is a water-based cult. It is a cult dedicated to purity, to cleansing the soul from sin, both in this life and the next. Sounds really nice. Cleansing people, purity, all that sounds very nice, very religious. They did this by using strange black stones to literally cut away the sin from people, to remove it from the cycle. We also know they had some lovely, helpful, friendly little minions alongside them on the Temple of Aminishi, and these were the Cressians. Cressians are lovely, happy little creatures, are not at all weird, psychotic, Lovecraftian monsters that are forged from black stone. So we know that all of this, so far, has led back to Blackstone, which in turn has led back to Ulfin Kriath, or the Shadow Reap, as it's also known. Even the Temple of Aminishi founder had a meditative moment where he had some sort of vision, and in this vision he was greeted by a strange sing-song voice that said something along the lines of, take these black stones, cut people's sin away, yada, yada, yada. And he did this underwater, at a particular location that maybe, just maybe, was, oh yes, it was Ulfin Kriath. So, Blackstone is used a lot. There's lots of manipulating people. There's building these strange cult. There's spreading these strange things as well. And we see some of it tied into Dungeon 2 as well. Which means someone is pulling these strings. Someone has set all this up, set all these things in motion. Someone is behind all this so far. And who is that person? Well, if you've been reading all the lore books, you will know that the person behind the Temple of Aminishi and all this stuff is a guy called Cranon. But you may know Cranon with a different name. Well, Cranon is probably better known as the Ambassador. So, yes, woo! So, who is Cranon? I hear no one say. Cranon was the Dragonkin that led that summoning ritual. On the lovely previous picture, the guy in the middle going, no. That was Cranon. So what is Cranon doing now? Well, Cranon made a mistake in the previous summoning ritual. It didn't go well, lots of people killed, oh, terrible. But he's had a lot of time to think about this, an awful lot of time. Time that has warped him, changed him. The malign influence that he's linked to has given him this new spangly form that you see on the screen behind me. So he's had centuries to work out what went wrong and how he might improve it. So he has built a cult and slowly manipulated humans passing through this black stone, changing people's souls, altering them. He has corrupted powerful anima beings like Seryu, so that they will help towards his cause. Which means that he is building up to something big. He is building up to something that endangers pretty much everyone. He threatens the lives of every single person on Gielinor, which leaves the only question to be, do you really think you can save them?
So that's the quest and story content coming this year and at the start of next year. But that's not all we have planned for 2019. It's been some time since Endgame, and it's time for the main storyline to continue. But we want to change the way we've been presenting story. In recent years, we think too much lore has been revealed outside the game, on live streams, on social media, and even here at RuneFest. We think the right place to experience the story and learn about the world is in-game. So we're going to be aiming to do more of that from now on. We want there to be much more of a sense of mystery. That means I'm not here to announce what the next major storyline quest is going to be. You'll find that out in 2019, much closer to the release date. What we are going to tell you is what, and more specifically who, we're going to be focusing on next. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's not Sliscape. In the last few years of quests, the gods returned to Gielinor, and Sliscape tried to set them against each other. There were some major revelations at the end of Endgame, as big as the changes in the world wakes, and there are many different ways to take the story from here. So where do we go next? When we're choosing what stories to tell, we don't just get to decide for ourselves. Raven just wants to kill some more signature heroes. I want to make a quest where you just follow Wahisatel around and watch him go shopping and do his laundry. Okay, fine, I'll make it. But what do you, the players, want, other than Wahisatel doing his laundry? We frequently run surveys and polls and conduct focus groups to try to gauge what you're most interested in. Most recently, we ran a survey asking a representative sample of players how excited they were for each of our major potential storylines, and these are the results. So hopefully you can see there are a clear 3 winners. Elder Gods, Gods, and Dragonkin are sitting comfortably ahead of the rest. We've just had 3 years of God quests, so obviously it's time to give the other 2 some room. That's not to say that gods or gnomes or the unnameable thing that's third from bottom won't get a look in. The focus of the next big storyline is going to be the Elder Gods and the Dragonkin. Yeah, lots of love for the Elder Gods and Dragonkin. In particular, we're going to focus on 2 specific characters, their history together and their future together.
Okay. So, let's start with the first one, which is Elder Gods. So let's just catch up with what the Elder Gods are so everyone's on the same page. So the Elder Gods, very simply, are the creators of everything. It needed to be suitably dramatic. What they do is they create worlds. They refine these worlds to make a perfect anima world that can feed all the anima into it and be lovely and delicious. And then what they do is they go down and they lay their eggs in this world. And then the original ones die off, and the eggs wake up, hatch, and tear the world to pieces. Because you would. We've seen previous worlds of the revision. We've seen their previous perfect world that was RuneScape. Where's the new one? Where's the new perfect world? Oh, yep. The new perfect world is, of course, Gielinor. That lovely place where everyone, does their skilling, cuts their trees, raises animals on the new player and farm. Yes. The Elder Gods are powerful, alien, strange beings, and we barely register as life forms to them. I need better cards. So, we need someone we can talk to, a focus for this, if you will. So let's go to Jazz. Jazz is the most approachable of the Elder Gods. Jazz, as you may know, created the Stone of Jazz from her egg. So she has denied herself that chance to be reborn. This one singular form is what she now is. The Stone of Jazz is quite important to any of you who have ever played any quests ever, as the Stone of Jazz is the source of much of RuneScape's magic and mystery. It is the source of runic magic. If you think about it, it's where the essence came from, their proximity to the Stone of Jazz. And therefore, it is also the source of many of the gods' power. Zamorak got his power in part from the stone. Saradomin got his power in part from the stone. Guthix got his power in part from the stone. So all of these come back to Jazz. Jazz is also, in her approachable way, orchestrated the events that have led up to much of the recent storyline. She is the one who took Sliske and went, you will be my agent, and instructed him to gather the big players, the spokespersons for all of life, if you will. Obviously, Sliske messed around with it and did his own Sliske thing, but the intention was to gather everyone together for one very simple, completely harmless question, which was, she got the player there and went, should mortal life be allowed to exist? Or more accurately, she said, prove that mortal life should be allowed to exist, or I'll destroy it. Which makes her the single biggest threat to all of Gielinor. Everything in Gielinor, she is the biggest threat. So, as well as Jazz, we have the next lot, who are the Dragonkin. So, the Dragonkin are an ancient race from the previous revision. They're not from this world life, they're from a world before. And in that time, they fled the revision, they escaped its mass destruction, and they went to Jazz and tried to petition, much as she's asked the players to, that mortal life should be allowed to exist, they should be saved. And Jazz looked at this and went, what an interesting thought. I know, I'll enslave you to the stone of Jazz. That seems fair, right? So the Dragonkin have been enslaved to the stone, cursed to feel terrible pain and anger at its use. Whenever it's used, it hurts them, they get driven into a frenzy, and they want to attack. In turn, this created two factions within the Dragonkin. On one hand, you have the Necrocertes. And the Necrocertes went, I feel pain, I feel anger, what do I do with this? I will obliterate everything in my way. And they turn to violence and destruction and want to use their fury to just burn the world to cinders. Then there's the Dactyl. And the Dactyl went, yes, we have a problem. And we will use this pain, use this anger as a focus, as a drive to give us purpose. And they seek to find a solution to the curse. Which in turn leads us to our big player, who is, of course, this lovely fellow here, who is Kerapak. Kerapak is the leader of the Dactyl. Kerapak has spent human lifetimes researching the curse and seeking a solution. He is absolutely driven towards this. It is his entire focus, his obsession. He wants to find a cure. He wants to find a solution to the terrible Dragonkin curse. He's a very, let's say, detached character. Some might say unethical, but he's scientifically detached, very focused, has a goal. And he will do anything to achieve this goal, which has included twisted experiments. He took little dragon eggs and went, oh, what would happen if I pour boiling metal over them? Interesting. He has experimented on various pieces of sentient life, including other Dragonkin. If any of you have been to Elite Dungeons 2, you will have seen some of the journals of things that he did. He is willing to throw himself into mortal danger. He turned up at Endgame. He turned up at Hero's Welcome. He's willing to throw himself in the way of danger in order to achieve this goal, to find a solution to the curse. Which leads us to the next bit.
The lives of the Dragonkin were focused entirely around the Stone of Jas. The Necrocertes were slaves to it, and the Dactyl spent every waking effort trying to escape it. All of that changed at the end of Endgame. Kerapak destroyed the Stone of Jas, freeing his people from the curse. The Necrocertes, hateful and angry, are no longer bound to pursue false users. What will they do with their freedom? The Dactyl have thousands of years of unethical, that's right, I said unethical, knowledge and research. Will they find a new purpose for it? And what about Jas? Elder gods don't think on the same timescale as mere mortals, so her threat at the end of Endgame didn't have much of a sense of imminence to it. But in 2019, that's going to change. The threat of the Elder Gods will stop being abstract. Now, you might be thinking, if the storyline follows on directly from the events of Sliske's Endgame, as we've described, doesn't that make it both very high level and locked behind one of the most exclusive quests in the game? The last data that we collected shows that only 11% of players have actually completed Endgame. So that would make it a very exclusive storyline indeed. Our job as mods, when we have our lore hats on, is to promote the story of the game and most significantly, quests. We want as many players as possible playing quests, but just as importantly, we want you to love playing them. More players playing and loving quests means more quests get made, which means you get more quests to play. With that in mind, we can't restrict the main storyline of the game to only high levels or only the 11% who completed endgame. So for the new Elder God and Dragonkin storyline, we're going to be doing the same thing we did with The World Wakes and with Missing Presumed Death, and reset the quest and level requirements. That means any member will be able to get right in and enjoy the new storyline. Of course, you should still go back and play all the previous 6-stage quests, not only because they're great, but because you need to complete them for the quest cape. And as everyone here knows, the quest cape is the best cape. I mentioned earlier that we're intending to reveal more of the lore and story in-game and less of it out of game. Well, that leaves us in an awkward situation here on the stage, because traditionally we like to give you some cool new lore, and we just said we're not going to do that. But don't worry, we've come up with a solution. We've written some brand new lore books about places that we're not visiting anytime soon, and we're going to present them in a way that takes advantage of this huge screen.
The Journal of Fel Arneson. Asa, I'm sorry. I went in search of the mystic cave in the utter north that leads to the White Lands. In that place, I would find adventure and riches and redeem our family's name. I found the thin place in the deepest parts of the cave, but what lay on the other side was not the land of snow. There was snow, for sure, but not the wholesome forests and gentle drifts of legend. What greeted me instead was a bleak and jagged landscape of dark stone mountains. All around, the biting wind howled, and in the distance blizzards raged, each large enough to swallow Relica on all the lands around. I wept then, for the way behind was closed, and I could see no sign of food or shelter anywhere in that place. I had no choice but to explore, to seek any sign of shelter or sustenance in this forsaken place. I set out and saw soon that the land all about was a sheet of ice, which filled in the space between the mountains. This was no slow-moving glacier, but an eternal frozen plain, miles deep. In places, the snow was blasted away by the wind, and I could see the murky ice reach down into the depths below, where the roots of the mountains lay. I found myself following a road of sorts, carved in the icy plain. A groove was cut 2 or 3 feet deep in the ice, a trench which ran in a perfectly straight line for as far as I could see in either direction. I could see no sign of who or what had made it, but I followed it in the hope of finding its maker. As I wandered, I saw shapes through the ice on the bottom far below. They were too regular or too incredible to be natural rock. They were buildings, great cities even, buried in a frozen, sunken slumber. What I could make out of their architecture seemed impossible. And when I try to sleep in this place, the strange, distorted shapes of those buildings haunt me. I wonder who could have built them, and whether they ever stood above the surface of the ice. Had they been ruined and buried, or were they somehow built within the ice itself? This world is nothing but loneliness. I walked for what must have been days in that unchanging wilderness, my supplies almost depleted. I encountered only one thing in that walk which could be confused for something edible. A large and voracious slug-like thing attacked me from a snowdrift. With impossible agility, it leapt at my face, and I was barely able to cut it down. I tried to eat it, but a thick and stinking ichor repelled me, and I left it on the ice. My hope was almost gone then, but finally, Through the snow ahead of me, I beheld a man on the road. I rushed to him, for where there were travelers, surely there was civilization, food, and a bed. I found a cloaked figure, his face impossible to make out, walking slowly and determinedly down the center of the road, never breaking stride. I bade him greetings in a shivering voice, but he gave no sign of notice and did not slow down. Cold and fearful and angered by his lack of response, I demanded that he stop. He ignored me as though I did not exist and trod on. I rushed ahead of him, such that he would have to greet me or go around. Instead, he simply walked into me without acknowledgement. And although I put my arms out to stop him and pushed with all my might, I could do nothing to halt or even slow him. I saw then that nothing could stop his travel, and I realized the impossible truth. He was not walking along the road. He was making it. The slow tread of his unwavering footsteps had carved an exact line around and around this world for ages I could not fathom. I fled from the unnatural road towards the mountains, but there I found something even more awful. Every Fremennik knows the legend of the Glaikors, those savage beings of ice brought forth by unholy sorcerers. What appeared on the horizon was a Glaikor of truly titanic size. I know now where I am. This is not the White Lands. This is the icy hell which some call Leng. As I write this account, I can see the massive Glaikor moving in the distance. It looms as tall as a mountain. Storms cling to its side, and a wicked and unholy light shines from within its core. I can see no hope, no survival in this place. But I can still find honor in battle and death. To be the first to slay such a beast, is it even possible? If this account lies unfinished, you will know that I failed.
This document is written in the Dragonkin language, but uncredited. The so-called Shadow Realm. In my research expeditions to the mainland, I have spent some time studying the sorcerers of the Empty Gods Empire. Their so-called dark magics come in 5 schools, and it is the school of shadow which most interests me, not least because of their misconceptions. I have read them describe it as a coterminous dimension, and although there is an element of truth to this, they quite fail to see the full picture. These sorcerers are adept to an extent and turn their power to inventive ends. They can summon forth shadow as a raw corrosive force, but they also use that same energy to reanimate the dead in both sapient and non-sapient forms. The most learned can even shadow walk, stepping into what they call the shadow realm to walk unseen. What they seem quite unaware of is that everything that they experience is but that tiny part of it which coils around Gielinor. The Shadow Realm may be a place, but it is not a part of any plane or world. It stretches from the very pit of this universe, below even the lowest planes, and reaches all the way to the highest, to Gielinor itself. Along the way, its tendrils reach out and touch many worlds, wrap around them, and those worlds too are said to have shadow realms. In these furthest planes, the shadow is merely a thin, invisible membrane that clings to the outside of the planets that it touches. It is possible to navigate the rivers of this interplanar network, but as one travels lower into the universe, the shadows become thicker and denser. What are rivers in the transcendent planes become great seas in the catalytic and elemental planes, surrounding the planets with a huge amorphous halo beyond the edge of normal sight. A shadow walker on these worlds could soar up into the sky beyond the atmosphere and out into planar space. Just as the abyss and void hold their own forms of life, so too does the shadow, and such beings can be found occasionally in these shadow seas, far from a world's surface. They are twisted and elusive creatures, more formless than definite. They are suffused utterly with shadow energy, composed, I believe, of the same matter as the sea they swim in. While within their realm, they are quite invisible from beyond it, and when brought forth into real space, they expire rapidly. Further down, in the lower planes, the stuff of shadow near fills the planar bubbles with its unseen presence. Shadow walking in those places, one finds oneself floating in a purple sea, the shadow realms of the planets merely dots in a limitless ocean. Beyond Frenesque, at the utter end of the universe, are the true depths, where the realm grows thicker and darker still, such that even gods must turn back. In even this place, there is life of a sort. The shadow Leviathan, a great worm large enough to coil around worlds. It hunts through the dark, seeking any pinprick of light to devour. If it has a mind, it knows only hatred of the living. Planes not filled with the shadow cannot sustain its bulk, and so seem safe from its predations. What none can see, whose lives do not span the breadth of eons as ours do, is that the shadow realm is spreading. When first we were subjugated by the stone, the shadow barely reached the lower planes. With each millennium that passes, the planes gradually fill with it, until it spills out across the universe, covering more and more worlds. Having reached even Gielinor, I do not know what, if anything, can stop it from filling the universe entirely. Usually in our law talks, we like to round things off with a Q&A. We didn't want to spend several minutes passing the microphone around this enormous room, so we've pre-selected some questions. Do we have time for a Q&A? How are we doing?
Yeah, we've got a few. Shall I start?
Okay.
Okay. Any plans for the 6th Elder God?
Yes. We haven't forgotten about it, but as I said earlier, we're definitely not going to tell you what they are. Is the player human?
So we've discussed this. As far as we're concerned, the player comes from the human kingdoms. Which one is up to you to decide. And we will be treating the player as human. If for some roleplay reason you have another origin for your character, by all means keep it. But as far as we're concerned, yes, the player is human and they come from the human kingdoms.
What about being the World Guardian?
Well, the World Guardian's a title rather than a race.
So they're still human?
They're still human. Oh, yeah. OK, here's a good one. Which is canon, RS3 or old school?
Oh. So we're still developing this, but our answer to this question at the moment is they're different interpretations of the same story. So events may play out slightly differently, but it's the same world.
Yep.
So neither or both?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, let's go with both.
Is Obisuth male or female?
I think we answered this one last RuneFest. Obisuth is male.
They just like hearing it, I think.
I think they just like hearing it. Oh, here's a good one. OK. Is Zaros planning to collect on the pacts made with the other gods at Endgame?
So Zaros made a pact with each of Saradomin, Zamorak, and Armadyl, I think.
Yeah.
And he agreed to do something for them in exchange for them doing something for him in Endgame. So now Endgame is over. They don't owe Zaros anything because the pact was strictly within Endgame. But what he agreed to do for them, he still needs to follow through on.
Yeah.
So we'll find out what happens with that in the future.
Yes.
Which mod is the biggest lore nerd?
Biggest lore nerd is probably Mod KOC. He's the one who comes to us and he goes, this thing here, but here there was a thing, and there was a different thing. And then 7 years ago there was this, and we go,
oh, you didn't think of that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's him. OK. What are the gods up to now that the stone is gone?
So the stone was just a means to an end, I think, for most of them. They only wanted it because it would help them to achieve their goals, whatever they were, which I think for the most part is conquer Gielinor and rule over it. Maybe not Armadyl. But Saradomin and Zamorak probably both want
Yeah.
to do that. Are there Revenant Avianci?
There should be. There just aren't any currently for graphical reasons. But there's no reason there couldn't be Revenant Avianci. There just aren't because models. A boring answer, but a fair one.
Feel free to write your Revenant Avianci fanfic.
Yep. Send it to him. Do Solus and Telos have souls?
No, since they're creations of the anima, they're essentially divine beings by definition. And
And
all
of course
divine
meant
beings
Solat,
don't have
not
souls.
Solus, but yeah.
Can you tell us more about Kerapak?
No.
Classic.
Yep. Any plans to revisit Dimension of Disaster?
Yes, if it ever comes up. We went back there for the Halloween event a couple of years ago. And I think we quite like it. We'd like to see what more of the world looks like. But it's sort of intrinsically a joke, so it doesn't suit serious content. But
It's always fun to play with.
yeah, I'd definitely like
What
to go back
if?
and see more of
That's
it.
always good.
What planet did the Dragonkin confront Jas on?
So we discussed this, and we're not entirely sure that question is correctly worded, because we didn't really have them on a planet.
Yeah.
I think our decision was that it was kind of either the abyss or possibly the emptiness of space. So whilst Jazz was kind of going, I'm making a world, isn't it pretty? What are you? Was what we
I
imagined.
want some concept art of that now. Maybe we can get that for next year.
We could. So yeah, it wasn't really on a planet. We think it's sort of more sort
In
of
space.
emptiness of space, yeah. I haven't got any more.
Oh, you're an out.
That's it.
I've got one more.
Oh.
Are there 2 sets of Elder Gods on Gillinor?
Oh, so this is to do with the eggs. And to do with the actual Elder Gods themselves. So it's because we're weird and like that. It's not really true that there are 2 sets of Elder Gods. More likely what we have is 1 set of Elder Gods and 1 set of Elder Gods in Potentia, because once the Elder Gods are born, the previous ones will die. So it's not like there's 2 at the same time of the same Elder Gods. It's not like 2 Wens. It's 1 and 1 in Potentia, except, of course, from Jazz, who is just that one.
Yeah.
Because she gave up her
no baby
potential
Jazz
stone.
anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's all we've got time for, isn't it?
I think that's it, yeah.
We're going to have to clear out of here soon.
So
I
they've
do have
skipped
one more
past
slide.
it.
Oh, they've taken my last slide
It's
away.
fine, we had one more slide, but they've skipped it.
Can we have the slide back? No, we
No,
can't.
never mind. So we'll be over by the mining and smithing computers.
Do come and try the
much as
demo.
possible.
It's fantastic.
Yep. Come and
If we
and
didn't
chat to
answer
us.
your questions, come and ask them or post
Oh, there
them
you
on,
go.
Post them on Discord. Yes, there we go. Come talk to us on Discord, ask lore questions, tweet us, ask lore questions.
Yep.
We got about 150 or something on the Reddit thread, so I
Yes.
think we're going to have to try to work through some of those. and
We'll
answer them.
try to,
Although
but
quite
yeah.
a lot of them are, I'm sorry, we can't really tell you about that yet because that's upcoming content.
Yeah.
Do come and ask us. So you've been a fantastic crowd.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thanks,
cheering
guys.
every time we start to say something funny. We'll see you all next time.
See you.